It'll fly for about an hour.
Would you end up with a final weight?
Well, this is still a prototype. I actually don't know. If I set a number right now, I think it'd be wrong. So we were more concerned about just getting the autopilot configured for successful vertical takeoff, flight, and landing. Pesky little software variable gains.
I could understand that.
If you get them wrong, it tends to like flip your plane around and smash you into the ground.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Is this a plane or a drone?
It's kind of, I mean, those are kind of the same. A drone can be fixed wing, but this one is both.
True.
It has two motors on the front that can pivot, and one vertical lift fan on the back that actually just turns off, and the propeller blades fold back with drag. So
an Osprey, an almost Osprey.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, let me get you their video presentation on YouTube real quick.
So much cool stuff happening.
And we tried, since we got restricted on competitions this year, we tried to do a lot of cool independent projects for Capstone.
Thomas, I have a question.
Go right ahead.
If you're flying it and all of a sudden you lose power on the ground with the software running, does it have a default where it has a homing to come back to where it started?
It has that. As we were flying it right now, it would go into failsafe and basically intentionally crash itself so it wouldn't just fly into the yonder. But yeah, the autopilots are smart enough that it would either return to home. Oftentimes what happens then is it flies back towards you, you regain link, and then you can continue in some manner. But thankfully, we've not faced too many of those scenarios. Thankfully, none that I know of. So there in chat, I'm going to put in the VTOL Groups video, which, separate from the presentation you'll see today, but they've done some cool stuff.
Thank you.
July we're having Ed Fong come down to visit us for our July meeting on making J antennas, and I think that'd be a cool thing to talk about with him to see if he has any thoughts on making 20 and 80 meter versions of the J antenna.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a 6 meter.
Well, there you go.
I'm talking about the one you put in a PVC and just, he's got the 2 meter 440, but he doesn't have, and a 220, but he doesn't even have a 6 meter.
Well, just do the math.
Yeah, I know.
But getting a long piece of PVC might be tough. But if you got the 200-foot antenna, drone antenna, that'd be good.
Yeah, but for 6 meters, all you need is 54 inches.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So much fun stuff, so little time.
I haven't had this much fun since the hogs ate baby Jimmy.
Sounds like we're getting a little rain at my house.
What?
Yeah, that's what I said too.
What?
You're having participation?
Right over your house too.
Huh.
It's
You
partly
sure it's not
cloudy.
your sprinkler system?
Yeah.
It's the flock of blackbirds flying over.
Yeah, that's what I said too.
You're having participation?
Yeah, it looks like there's a bunch of little pop-up showers, except the one down in Norman. That'll be a hailstorm, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm not going in.
Yeah, there's one just right on the south side of Moore.
I haven't looked. Guess I better.
All right, Mr. Mark.
What you got?
9:30.
Oh, it's Mr.
Not
Galen's.
far to me.
Mr. Galen's bus. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mr. Galen. Sorry about that, sir.
It
Many
might as well
apologies.
be Mark,
A
but
1,000 apologies, Mr. Galen.
yeah. And yes, you're right. It is 9:30. And welcome everyone. We'll call the May meeting of the South Canadian Amateur Radio Society to order. And thank you for everybody that's here. I don't have the deal up. It looks like we've got at least 27 of us here this morning on Zoom. Mark, do we have some other folks over on the other streaming services?
Yep. Got about half dozen over there so far. So looks like it's good.
Good deal. Well, thank you, everybody. We debated a couple of nights ago whether to attempt an in-person meeting, and chose, since Norman still has mask restrictions in place, we felt it would probably be better to remain virtual this month. So we'll readdress that before the next meeting, and we'll get notice out ahead of time a little better than we did this time. For those of you who are wondering what the newsletter article was that Mark was waiting on publishing the newsletter this month. Everybody, please mute your mics if you're not talking this morning. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Wayne and let him introduce our program for the morning.
Okay, thank you, Galen. Thank you, everybody who is joining us here today. And thank everybody for muting their mics if they're not talking. So I'm going to get right to it, and I'm going to introduce Dr. Thomas Hayes, who is forgive me, Dr. Hayes, if I mess this up, you are the professor, instructor, the head honcho of the OU Capstone Project. And I'm just going to turn it over to you, let you introduce your crew there, and tell us what kind of good stuff that's been going on over there. So, Dr. Hayes, you have the com.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm happy to present to you guys today Eric, Vince, and Amber. They've been working on a high altitude balloon project this spring semester as part of Aerospace Capstone. So yeah, I'm the professor of practice for aerospace engineering at OU. And as part of that, I get to work with all the senior engineers on interesting projects. And in the past couple of years, starting with the technician license I got for high altitude rocketry work, it's grown into more and more of an amateur radio obsession and interest. And now we actually start teaching some RF topics to aerospace engineers in Aerospace Capstone so they can better understand how to integrate with RF scientists, integrate antennas onto aircraft, radar systems onto aircraft. And while they may not be experts in the discipline and certainly not electrical engineers, the fact they know a little bit helps them go a long way to differentiate themselves from other aerospace graduates from around the country. So yeah, we have students now talking about, ultra low frequency communication with submarines, and of course, we have to stay a little bit away from RCS topics and ideas like that because of the military classified nature of them. But in terms of communications and integration of RF systems onto vehicles, it's a really great project. This project you're going to hear about today, the high altitude balloon, which I'll let the students do the explaining. They're actually here to present to you themselves, which is basically middle of the night for college students, I think. They're going to go through their super pressure high altitude balloon, which they've launched a number of, and just, I don't want to steal their thunder because some of the ranges and power levels they've been using are just really, really astounding. I do want to very much thank SCARS, especially Mark Klein, Peter Laws, and Peter Core for assisting out with the group. Mark has been, as we all know, a phenomenal resource for the students. He has such a mind for helping them. So thank you so much, Mark. He met with them every Monday of the whole semester. So thank you so much for your time spent with the students. Someday, hopefully, we all can pay you back for your dedication. So yeah, so credit goes to Mark as well in the success the students have had here. I guess, Mark, do you have anything you want to say, or do we turn it straight over to the students to see their presentation?
I don't know if they're going to bring it up, but Tom Medlin, are they going to bring that up? Do you know?
I'm not sure, but it's also to give credit to Tom Medlin, who's W5KUB. He's launched a number of these balloons and is kind of the expert global, worldwide high altitude balloon launcher that has also dropped into a few meetings and has assisted the students greatly in developing their habits, developing software, looking at some of the math required for determining altitude, even sharing spreadsheets and coming in to talk with the students themselves. So yes, thank you, Mark, for helping me avoid that lapse of mention, because Tom certainly also deserves credit for all the help he's given the students.
It's a lot of fun.
So with that, I think Vince, I saw in Slack that you're going to be screen sharing. So if you want to go right ahead, I think you guys can go with your presentation.
I just want to say thanks to Mark and Dr. Hayes, and then I know Tom isn't here, but yeah, we really couldn't have gotten this far without y'all three. Just having to learn all radio. We three of us got general license, and one of us got technicians, and I would have never thought I would have gotten those before this semester. It was really fun, passing all the tests and everything, so it was really exciting. But we're just gonna show our capstone video, and then I'm going to give an updated slide because we're still working on, we still have one more launch that we're going to try to do before the end of the semester. We're kind of just waiting on good weather, and then we can just open up to questions. So let me share my screen.
Don't forget your audio.
Are you able to see it?
Yes, it looks good.
Let's make sure that's all the way up. Okay, there we go. Hi, today we'll be going over the OU Aero Satellite Capstone project. So our mission overview was to design, build, and launch at least 4 high-altitude balloons that were as light as possible and that would stay up for as long as possible. These balloons have transmitters on them that transmit their location, altitude, speed, temperature, voltage, and ambient pressure.
Our schedule was laid out in a quantifiable way to ensure the goal was not too hard to reach, but it also allowed us to challenge ourselves enough. We quantified this in the amount of pico balloons launched. Due to weather, it was an uncertainty that we could launch on certain days, so we designated it as also ready to go. It should also be noted that the entire group obtained their licensing after the first drop dead date, so we could use our own call signs legally. The first launch was utilized using the university's call sign. In the beginning month or so, we were all getting a hold of radio and understanding it and how it applied to pico balloons, so by the next month we felt comfortable enough and took the amateur radio test for our second launch. So February 26th, we wanted a fully functional pico balloon with a tracker and all the necessary components for power and lift. By March 26th, we wanted to have one more additional pico balloon launched by then, so 2 in total. April 23rd, that's technically not a drop dead date, but it's more of a end of semester goal so that we can reach that and feel fulfilled. And by the end, we had wished to have 4 pico balloons launched to succeed.
At the beginning of our design approach, we knew we wanted to maximize our cruising altitude. This is because typically clouds are between 10 to 20,000 feet, and storm clouds will get up to about 60,000 feet, but we know we can't get around these, but at least we can get around the 10 to 20,000 feet clouds. So to do this, we knew that we needed to minimize our weight. As you can see from our graph on the right, the altitude of the balloon depends heavily on the mass of the payload, and as you increase the mass of the payload, the cruising altitude of the balloon will decrease. We also wanted to minimize our number of parts. This is because we wanted to keep it extremely simple. We wanted to decrease the number of reasons why it could fail, and decreasing the number of parts can also save quite a bit of weight overall. We also wanted to make sure that our structures could withstand the turbulent winds seen up at about 40,000 feet, 30,000 feet, which can get up to about 120 miles an hour, 150. Also, we needed to make sure that it could withstand the low temperatures, which is about negative 40 degrees Celsius, and the high radiation seen at that altitude. We also wanted to make sure that our solar panels could supply the correct voltage and current required for our tracker to transmit. To find our cruising altitude, we use the Van der Waals equation as seen on the right. This equation would give us our cruising altitude, but it would also give us the overpressure seen inside the balloon. This is extremely important to know because we need to make sure that our balloon is not going to pop once it reaches its cruising altitude.
Ultimately, we use two balloon configurations throughout our launches, the first being the SBS-13, which is a high-quality scientific balloon designed specifically for superpressure, and if you use hydrogen, that's around the 40,000 foot range is what we got. We believe this balloon did very well for us in terms of quality of launches. We did not suspect any leakage from this balloon on the majority of the flights, and instead we ran into many spring storms that likely took down our trackers. Once we ran out of the SBS-13 balloons, we started using the 36-inch balloons. These are just cheap Chinese balloons, and in a launch we used two of these, and they had a significant difference in height of about 10,000 feet or so. The tracker we used in all of our launches was the Light APRS made by QRP Labs. For the version that included Whisper, which is what we used, it was about $115 pre-tax for each tracker. It weighed an impressive 9 grams approximately, which was jam-packed with utilities such as tracking via Whisper and APRS. So Whisper was a protocol that allowed for weak signal radio communication between amateur radio operators, and in our case it gives a grid square location, which is about 70 by 100 miles, which also corresponds to 1 degree latitude by 2 degrees longitude. In contrast, APRS on the tracker is a radio system that allowed for real-time digital information such as altitude, location, temperature, pressure, height, and also battery voltage and other telemetry. So to do this, it would send out bursts of power using our supercapacitors that were charged up from the solar panel of up to 1 watt of power, whereas the Whisper just did around 10 milliwatts. All of this was readily assembled on a printed circuit board and was used with open source software that we could change via USB.
About the solar panel, we used NPT675 panel for the first prototype. The solar panel is thin, light, and flexible. Signal board only uses 3.3 volts to operate. After the first launch, we switched to using NPT475 panels to reduce weight and make the system less bulky. Here is our final system design. The tracker is powered by one NPT475 solar panel and two 3-volt 2-farad supercapacitors connected in series. On the bottom of the tracker, there are two antenna wires. One is 20 meter long for 20 meter band in Whisper mode. The other is 19-inch long for 2 meter band in APRS mode. On the top of the tracker, there is one 20 meter long ground antenna wire. The whole system weighs less than an ounce, around 24 grams to be specific. The payload is tied below balloon using friction wire. For the first 3 launches, we used SBS-13 balloon to carry the payload, and for the 4th launch, we switched to using two 36-inch foil balloons instead. These balloons were filled with hydrogen, except for the first launch, we used helium. The amount of gas was filled just enough to lift the balloon to around 40,000 feet. After reaching that floating altitude, they continued to stay aloft and fly without bursting. The tracker showed on the right is the latest tracker version that has flown in a mission. The mass of this tracker was considered and minimized to every gram. We minimized the mass of this tracker by selecting the lightest solar panels, capacitors, wires, and strings that we could find. We even used a bamboo stick to connect the solar panel to the board since this material is light enough and can structurally support the tracker against high winds. This is the lightest tracker version. It weighs only 16.66 grams.
Our first launch was on March 6th. We used helium as the lifting gas and the SBS-13 balloon. The launch was successful, reaching an altitude of around 30,000 feet. We lost contact with the balloon the next day, and we believe that the failure was either due to a condensation buildup or mishandling of the material. This first launch proved that the tracker was able to be detected long and wide, being detected from even Australia. And on the right, we have a picture of the balloon flying up. Now, to determine the possible failure states of the balloon, we narrowed down by taking the tracker, having it run through the night, and seeing if it's running the next day. And we did this test, and it turns out it was working the next day, so it was unlikely that it was the capacitors or solar panel causing any failure. So the balloon likely hit a cloud or leaked helium. So we decided that for further launch, we were to take special care to make sure that the balloon did not get damaged before launch. Our second launch was on March 23rd. This used the SPS-13 balloon, but it used hydrogen as the lifting gas. The tracker, unfortunately, hit the ground before the balloon was able to lift it. This had a effect where the APRS signals were unresponsive. However, Whisper was fully available. So we were able to track it, but not with the full capability. And the result of this launch is that we figured out how to launch the balloon more successfully, taking better care to prevent the tracker from getting damaged. The third launch was on March 28th. The launch was fully successful, reaching an altitude of 42,000 feet using the SPS-13 balloon. This tracker restarted the next day, and eventually condensation brought it down over Newfoundland, and we were able to determine this by seeing the altitude slowly decrease over time. Our fourth launch was launched on April 8th. Instead of the SPS-13, we used 2 foil balloons. This had a direct impact and reduced the altitude of the balloons to 30,000 feet, but it significantly reduced the cost of the balloon. And this balloon and tracker was able to reconnect the next day, but unfortunately the tracker was probably taken down by a storm vortex over the Great Lakes.
And finally, we wanted to acknowledge Mark Klein, N5HZR. He mentored our entire team through this whole process. He knows everything about amateur radio. He helped us pass our test. Anything you want to know about amateur radio, he knows. And then we also wanted to thank the SCARS Radio Society, W5NOR. They also helped us immensely through our process, and we really couldn't have done it without them. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you for watching.
All right, so that's the end of the video, but I can also give a new update. So this is our current balloon we've been working on. It's about 16 feet long. It has a volume of estimated 180 cubic feet. It shows that it's supposed to be like 220, but we're unsure about how when it fills up. It's not we kind of estimated it off a cylinder, and we estimated that it's not a perfect cylinder, so we said it was about 180, and this would put us about at 64,000 feet. And here it's laying on 2 tables, and then this is a couple days ago when we inflated it, but we're kind of having issues with our sealing, or we're not. When we got the product, we noticed that there's kind of these like little tiny like micro holes in it. So we patched every one that we could see, and it holds air initially and it looks great, but after 2 or 3 hours of it being pressurized, it slowly leaks out. So it's kind of an issue for us when we're trying to make it last for months on end. And yeah, I think that's the end of our little presentation. We can go over questions.
I think it's an awesome project. Thank you very much for sharing that. What Tom Medlin, I know, is doing a super balloon kind of idea thing, like just like this. He's finding the same thing with these micro holes. He actually got his on his garage floor, and he's seeing the sand particles eat away at that material. What thickness are you talking about on that stuff? And have you found anything that may keep it alive in the air?
This material is 1 mil. And when we were handling the balloon, like, okay, currently this is in our living room, but this is after multiple tests where it just kept on deflating. So we're like, we need to get a photo of it when it's filled for this presentation. And also because it just looks cool. Like, his head's right here and this thing's huge. But when we were handling it, we always had tarps down. We always had, it wasn't going to touch anything that we thought would poke it. But also we took some of our excess material and we took a pin and tried to pierce it, and it wouldn't even pierce. So that's what I was kind of confused about. That Tom was saying that sand and like little things in his garage were puncturing it. But if I was having an issue getting a pin through it, then I don't think that a piece of sand would. So I'm really unsure. We triple checked our seals. We went over, then we even decreased the size of inside the balloon to create about 6 inches worth of seal, because we just wanted to make it work. And we just, I don't know if it's just snaking out one of those seals, because we just take the 2 layers, we fold it over each other, and put a hot iron on it. And you can see little ripples, but if you do it for long enough, it should create a good seal of about 6 inches. But I'm assuming that there's one little puzzle like maze it gets out. And I guess I didn't go over it. Why we went with a tube and not like a sphere, which a sphere would be optimal, was because our material was 48 inches by however long we wanted. And we wanted to minimize our number of seals because, as we're seeing, our seals are kind of an issue. And so we just took the material and spread it out as long as we could and just folded it over like a tortilla, and then just did the edges and sealed it. So you have like a giant hot dog.
Why not use a weather balloon?
Do what?
Why not use a weather balloon?
So the weather balloons, they are kind of designed to go up and pop versus what we need it to do. We need it to go up and stay, and they're extremely heavy. But they make up for it because they're just trying to hit a max altitude and pop, but we're trying to get to a max altitude and stay. And I think the weight estimates for a similar size as the SBS 13 is like 300 grams versus like 119 grams. And that would be a difference of probably like 10,000 feet, somewhere in there. Cruising altitude.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the difference in the material of weather balloons versus the SBS and Mylar, weather balloons will degrade in sunlight and UV. So even if you did configure one so that it float at a constant altitude, eventually it's going to pop due to UV degradation.
Oh yeah, okay, I should have said that too. But another reason why we, on this final tractor design, why we chose a bamboo, I was really thinking about 3D printing this because I feel like plastic would be, like a 3D printer would make something lighter and probably stronger because you probably make a support here. But PLA and ABS tend to get hit by UV rays and they'll just kind of melt or just deteriorate over time. So that's why we had to go with wood. Also, you can't really see it right here, but there's a string right here. And we chose fishing line, but we had to choose like threaded, braided fishing line, not plastic fishing line because of the UV rays. So that was another decision we had to make.
And the fishing line, probably to make it self-destruct, is probably designed to go away with UV, right?
Mm-hmm, probably.
Does that make sense? I mean, I'm not a fisherman, but that would, same like the weather balloon. They're designed to fail so they don't litter the society. Those are good points. I hadn't thought of that. APRS, you said that the one of the units bounced and lost the 2 meter whispers or the 2 meter APRS signal. You think the antenna fell off, or do you have any idea what happened there?
We think that it wasn't getting enough power because the APRS mode takes quite a bit more power than the whisper mode, and it will always send out a whisper packet before the APRS. And when we were kind of doing testing of a solar panel, because when it hit the ground, a wire went around it and flipped it over. So the solar panel was completely 90 degrees to the ground. So it was perpendicular to the ground. And when we kind of did some testing outside, the max voltage it would see was about 4.5 volts, and it would charge up to that. And then it would exhaust all the capacitors and send out a whisper, and then it would turn itself off. So then it would have to recharge to even get itself back online, get a link, and then send out another whisper packet. So never got enough power to hit an APRS. I think we got 1 or 2 midday, but after that we only got whisper, and I think it was just in a very low power mode.
Now, Peter Core did some interesting antenna work and signal work. Would you be able to speak to some of that data you got back that was assembled by Peter in his whisper test setup?
Yeah, okay, so Peter, I can't remember the exact wattage he had, but his setup that he has in his backyard is like 100 times more powerful than our balloon. And our balloon in whisper mode sends it's 10 milliwatts. That's how much power it uses to send out one signal. And ours was going all the way to Australia and stuff. And when he showed us the difference between his ground unit and ours, they were extremely similar. His was slightly better, but his setup was way more expensive and had way more power to it. But it was just because we were at 40,000 feet and he's 10 feet off the ground, which height is might, kind of what Mark said.
Yep. I think he was running 2 watts, if I remember right, from a ground-based antenna. And I think what he had was the D Explorer. There's a way you can compare whisper signals, and if you derated Peter's 2 watts to the 10 milliwatts, I think the number I'm guessing, but wasn't it 12 to 14 decibels, 12 to 14 dB that signal up in the air gave him over the ground signal. So that's 2 S units, which is pretty impressive. That's a lot of signal, and you're making it to Australia.
Yeah. Oh, well, and then our next 2 launches, they were great. He kind of went over it too. But yeah, we've just been hit by weather. I guess spring isn't the best time to send one of these balloons out, because we can just watch it. This huge vortex down here, we just see the balloon get caught up in it, boom. And then we go over to this one too, and we don't have the weather thing down here, because we were trying to show the foil balloons what they looked like in this specific slide. But there's just this huge vortex up here, and we saw it go over here, and then it just, and then we wake up the next morning. At least we got a packet out the next morning, because we got like 1 or 2 packets out in the morning, and it was gone after that. But that was the big reason why we switched to this, is because it flies at about 64,000 feet. That's what we estimate. And the highest weather clouds go about 60,000 feet. So we were just trying to go right over. Even if we get kind of caught up in their wind below, we shouldn't get hit by any clouds, because it seems like our clouds are our biggest issue.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you able to compensate for the condensation with the 2 balloon this time, even though you're trying to go higher?
Like if we get condensation on the balloon, would it be okay?
Right.
So we were going to give it, okay. So all of our previous launches, they have 7 grams of free lift. So that means it can get about 7 grams worth of condensation on it. And so we were planning on, but the issue with that is if you fill it with too much at the bottom, once it gets or at ground level, once it gets up, the gas keeps on expanding. And if you put too much in the beginning, it'll pop the balloons. And so that was the whole issue. So we were going to go for about 12 grams of free lift, just in case it does hit something along the way. But when you do keep adding where it has more free lift, there's a higher and higher chance that it's going to pop itself once it reaches its cruising altitude, and you're really going to be testing your seals. And so we were just going to kind of wait for a day where there's no clouds and just hope that we can get over them before any condensation can get on them.
I have a question. How do you attempt to keep the solar panel oriented towards the sunlight?
All right, so that's a good question. So on this slide, we use one piece of string on this, that's the ground. This hole right here, that's kind of where we're able to attach our string. And we've actually weighted this where the capacitors weighs as much as this solar panel and the stick coming out. Right. And so when we hold it, that's where it balances. And so even if it hits some wind and stuff, it'll always just come back to that resting spot. And
oriented, but how does it keep horizontally oriented?
It's just balanced. And so I mean, it's just straight up, like the sun, it's just parallel to the ground the whole time. So anytime the wind blows it and it kind of gets off, I guess I'm kind of confused about your question a little bit.
Well, if the solar panel's oriented away from the sun, you're not going to get much.
Oh, okay. So we only transmit during the day when the sun's pretty much over the tracker the whole time. So it will turn on at about 11 a.m. and it'll go off at about 5, and then the sun angle's too low. So it stays up like this the whole time. The sun will be here, it won't work. Here it won't work, but when it's here, yeah, it's good, and it'll stay good until it gets about here, and then the sun angle's too low. So we don't orient it at all. We just keep it straight up and hope the sun hits it.
Okay, thank you.
Didn't you guys do some tests with 2 cells and found that was problematic?
Mm-hmm. So we did do tests with 2 solar panels because Tom, the guy that does these balloons all the time, he's done it a few times where the panels are angled, and that's so you can get the morning and night, you get a longer. So ours would turn on at about 11 and go away at about 5, and his would start at like 9 and go away at like 7, and he would get enough during the peak hours. But we were just trying to get it to work, I guess, at first. And that would add a bunch of weight, adding an extra solar panel. And then we had to add, I guess Eric should chime in. He kind of did all the testing on the solar panel configurations if he's here.
Yeah, sure. You able to hear me?
Yep. Okay. Speak up a little bit, but yep.
All right. So when I kind of went over our solar panel configuration, it was 2 solar panels. It was kind of about the same size as the one we used in testing or in our main launches, but in testing, it's about 2 cut in half is about the size we're looking at. And then we had to connect a couple diodes to that. And overall, if you add the structures to those 2 solar panels, the diodes and everything, you're looking at about maybe double the weight of what we would see with just 1 solar panel pointed 90 degrees, pretty much horizontal to the sun. So you would see better solar, you'd get better power out of it. But the main reason we would have to implement some diodes and add some extra weight is the deal with solar panels is if you have one shaded and one has exposed to light, you'll get some kind of like voltage bleed off, and you'll get current running into the cells you don't want to that are darkened, and that'll damage the cell, and eventually the whole system will kind of be corrupted, and then we end up adding somewhat of dead weight at the end of the day there. So we just stuck with the most simple design approach so we can at least get some data out first. And if we wanted to mess around further with that, we would.
So what did you learn you didn't think you were going to learn?
A lot. Well, I guess just going over our licenses and getting that was a lot of fun. I also thought it was a 20-meter band really means that the wire is like 20 meters, but we do the half dipole, so it's only 10 meters. But I guess when people would always say that to me, I never really thought that it actually meant 20 meters. just little stuff like that. I thought it was really cool how far we could get the transmissions. I think it's in this one. Yeah, we got all the way down in Australia. On our third launch, we got the EU to start talking to us. I just thought it was insane how far we could get it to go. Out of 10 milliwatts of power. I thought that was crazy.
What size was your antenna wire?
So our whisper mode was 20 meters, but it was a half dipole, so just 10 meters. And then we had the APRS as the 2-meter band, but we did the half dipole, so it was 1 meter.
But what gauge wire?
Oh, it was a 36 gauge copper wire, magnet wire. And it was extremely difficult to deal with because it's pretty much as thin as your hair. And so like when you're trying to launch it in Oklahoma winds, there were several times we would get out there and you have 10 meters worth of wire trying to hold that's as thin as a hair, and the wind's blowing and then it just will snap. So we had to bring like 2 or 3 basically backups with us just in case of a snap, and we'd have to solder it out there right before the launch. And the wire was about 0.54 grams for the full 10 meters of wire. And if we would have gone to a lower gauge wire, that would have increased the weight even more, or it would have increased the weight, even more. And I even thought about doing like 30 gauge wire, but it like almost tripled the weight. So it really wasn't worth it.
What'd you do on the 2-meter?
We also just went with the 36 gauge. We were thinking about doing like guitar string or a higher gauge, but we didn't really see any issues with it except for on the second launch where we weren't getting the APRS out, but we thought that was due to power, not the wire snapping.
So what advice do you have for a team that would carry this on next year? What's the most important thing they should take away from your work here?
I think the most important thing, first of all, I think we took a little too long to get our licenses. I think that should be priority 1 within the first month. So I think the semester starts like, what is it, the 15th or something like that of January. And y'all do it the first Thursday of every month, right? You're testing.
Right.
I think you should do that. That's the first thing you should do. Just study those 2 weeks as hard as you can, especially since it's the start of the semester. You have every class is quite a bit chill. I would work with the SBS 13s, and I would try to make your own tracker. That would be, or make your own balloon. Really focus on the balloons, because when you get in the Excel spreadsheet, you really notice that the payload, when you're already at 16 grams, the difference between 16 and 9 is about 4,000 feet, which, I mean, that's a bit, but when weather clouds that we were hitting probably are at 50,000 or 55,000, it really doesn't make a difference making your own board and all that. But really working on a balloon that can get you up to 65,000, 64,000, I think that would be the priority, because just make it bigger. But that's kind of a logistics issue, trying to fill the hydrogen. We had quite a few issues trying to figure out places to fill the hydrogen on campus, because you're filling a balloon with hydrogen that if any static hits it, it could just pop and be a news headline for OU. So that's kind of one issue I would say that they would have to figure out right at the beginning of the semester, figure out where they're going to fill it, who they need to talk to. But that's where I would send them, is making a big balloon.
Okay, I had a question.
Okay.
Okay, so not to go into too much details, and I'm not real familiar with balloon launches and such as that. So on the device itself, do you Okay, first you have to register these with the FAA. What are the legal things that you have to do? And like if I have a house in Canada and this thing drops in my yard, you have like a little note in there saying, hey, this is from OU Norman, Oklahoma, or such like that. So kind of briefly explain that.
There's some law that we're allowed to legally fly under. It's on Tom W5KUB's website. I can't remember what the FAA rule is, but I'm kind of unsure about when it drops. That's one thing I'm kind of unsure about. I'm going to be completely honest.
There's a problem that you can't transmit over certain countries, like I believe UK, North Korea, and Yemen.
Yep.
So the tracker actually turns off if it's above those countries. That's one of the regulation things that we had to consider.
Okay, I wondered about that because I know that you can't just fly over any place and invade their airspace. So I was kind of curious about that, but thank you for answering that.
And
I
it's
have a
part,
question.
it's FAA Part 101 is what it is. There's a whole thing on size. Basically, I think it was designed that if it was smaller than a bird ingestion, that was allowable. If I recall the history of why it was done.
I have a question on your balloon size. What was your calculable max weight that you would be able to fly with?
I guess we never looked at the max weight. I guess we were always just looking at the minimum weight. If at launch, if you had 10 grams of free lift, trying to calculate in my head. I'm really unsure. We were always just looking at the minimum.
The reason I ask that is, as a pilot, you always look at what your aircraft is able to carry, and you figure your fuel load, your weight load, and everything else based on that, and your density altitude you're going to be flying at. So that's the reason I'm asking that question. You were always going minimums. If you could have increased your antenna size and and gauge, or a couple other things, and still been well under your max load weight, wouldn't that have been better for your some of your problems that you encountered?
I guess the whole issue was when you add weight of any type, you're going to decrease altitude. And our whole goal up here in our goals at the beginning of the semester design approach was to maximize our cruising altitude. And any type of weight in general, we wanted to minimize. And I guess that's what we were looking at mainly.
No, that makes perfect sense. I was just looking at, if you had calculated that weight and done any density altitude studies.
We did studies that if we added weight, like if we were to do the 2 solar panel configuration, yeah, it did double the weight. It didn't really change the altitude too much. Like it was about 500 feet. The main thing that we were concerned about there was the amount of parts that one could fail with the diodes or something like that. But we did look at okay, let's go with a stiffer stick to hold up the solar panel, and it wouldn't change it that much. So we would just minimize the weight as best we could, but the stick was one thing that we were like, okay, well, we're going to have to add the extra weight because it really doesn't make too much of a difference. And what I just said about next year was the difference between 16 grams and 9 grams in a tracker does make a difference of 2,000 feet, but it's not worth it to put all the time into it versus just building a bigger balloon.
And for those of us that are gram challenged, a gram is the equivalent of a paper clip. So you're talking the 16 paper clips is what their weight is.
And we started at the beginning of the semester. So at the beginning of our semester, we started, our first tracker was 27, and then it dropped to 21, and it was 17, and the fourth launch was 16.66. So we changed by 10 grams, which is about 2,000 feet, 1,000 feet.
I have a question about your balloon material.
Okay.
Yes, the balloon material you use to make your balloons, is it designed for balloon making, or is it repurposed from a material made for something else?
So the website we got it from was something called, I think it was like Fluffy. It was the same one that Tom W5KUB was using, and it is designed to make balloons. It's designed to make like mainly like party balloons, but they also had like the Hindenburg, like somebody made a Hindenburg out of their material. But I don't think they knew people like us were going to send it up to 60,000 feet and like are trying to put it under extreme pressure, or not extreme pressure, but pressure over time.
Did you try filling it with smoke or something to see if you could figure out where the leaks were coming from?
We did not fill it with smoke. At first we were just trying to like, I guess, just hear it. We did not fill it with smoke, but we just kept on. We would patch one hole, we would patch one hole, we'd patch one hole, and we eventually got to where we had like 10 or 12 different patches, and we were kind of getting frustrated.
Can I offer a suggestion?
But that's a really good idea. But yes,
for the next time or next set of students, mix a soap water solution in a spray bottle and just spray it on the balloon, and wherever it has an air leak, it'll start bubbling.
Oh yeah, that is nice. We should have done that.
Film.fluffyscarsdale.com is in case you want to build your own.
Since the balloon material, this new balloon is new information, even for me. Do you think all the leak issues were with the seals, or did you find any pinholes in the material?
We found pinholes in the material from, I guess, when it was like just sent to us. We found a couple at the start, and then, but they're really hard to see. They're really tiny. And then I do think there was a seal issue too, because it's just so much material and it's so long that there's got to be somewhere in there that I guess it isn't sealing correct.
Or in a manufacturing process. And I don't know that, Tom Medlin was complaining that it was the sand, like you said. And if you can't poke a pin through it, I don't know what, maybe he hadn't considered faulty material. I'll send him a message and see what his question is on that, or his answer is on that. But that's
what I was thinking about.
That's good
in the
to know.
Manufacturing process, if they had some kind of electrostatic buildup that was punching these little holes in it or something.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to know if it was designed for balloon making or if it was repurposed from some other
material.
Yes.
Yeah, you might try just a different vendor of similar stuff in the future. That'd be neat.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
I like the soap idea the most, or the smoke. That's a really good idea. That's something I'll put it down on my like senior exit paper.
Question, please, Vincent. Back to the antenna thing. If I understood you, you've got two on each one. One is a meter long and the other is 10 meters long. And you use very small wire. I see this thing flailing around up in the air like crazy, maybe coming in contact with each other. That couldn't be too good.
So we would let the whisper dangle, but we would so after the first two launches, we were kind of concerned about that. Dr. Hayes told us that there might be interference because they're just so close, the two wires, because we kind of noticed that our gain on our APRS was kind of going down after a few days. It was like a perfect, or is it gain? Something was messed up. Like the signals weren't great. The strength of the signals weren't great. And he said that the wires might be crossing. So right here on this board, this is where the APRS will come out, and this is where the whisper, I guess, right here. Yeah, APRS and whisper. And we would actually take the APRS and put it up on this stick and then let it dangle off. And when we were kind of just like trying to really make him just touch or entangle themselves, we just couldn't. So after we did that, and it worked, like we still got packets out just fine.
Okay.
And also that idea you had of using kind of that more rigid guitar string might be really something worth looking at for the lighter and shorter APRS antenna, I think.
Well, the high E string on a guitar would be fairly stiff and yet very small. And that would probably do well for the short antenna.
Bill makes cigar box guitars, so that's his question.
That'd definitely be something that I feel like next capstone group should work with and look at. Because maybe what if one of our balloons is up there and we just don't even know? Maybe it did snap, or maybe it did entangle. But
okay.
Speaking of the wire, particularly on the longer one, did you have issues with it wanting to curl up?
It never tried to curl. It never. It would only snap when you really tugged on it. But the one that there was one that went straight up, one that went straight down. This one, there was no tension on it because the fishing line, it was glued to the fishing line, and the fishing line tied off to the balloon. But no, it never curled up. I didn't even think about that. I guess it just never happened to us. But yeah, it was pretty malleable.
Other questions for our presenters?
I had a question. I had a phone call there, so I missed a little bit here, but I was curious about those wires. I missed out on part of the conversation about the wires hanging down. Do you think it'd be possible to maybe iron like one of the longer wires into the seam of the balloon when you're manufacturing the balloon, and that would give it support away from the other wire?
That'd actually be a pretty good idea. That would be nice. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that because currently how we have the configuration is we have a fishing line that goes up, and then along the fishing line we have little tie-offs, so there's never tension in that wire. But then we're kind of relying on super glue and like tape to hold 5 meters worth of wire, which it may be up there with the high winds, because it was our balloon along this trail was getting up to, I think our peak, I can't remember what our peak was. It was like 120 or something like that miles an hour. I can't remember if Eric or Tu or Amber remember. It was like
right,
100, yeah, somewhere in there. But I did think about like, I wonder if it's actually holding up, or did our ground wire disconnect from our fishing line, and was it also just kind of laying flat down? But when we were discussing with Tom, he said he would just tie it or glue it or tape it, and he said he never had any issue with it.
That he knows about.
Yeah, that he knows about. So, yeah, if we manufacture our own balloon, because you wouldn't have to have tension in it, you could just give it some slack.
One challenge on that though is that the balloons are metallized, usually to help steer. So that would actually interact with your antenna, that super thin metal coating on the balloon material. Unless you went with a different material, then yeah, no big deal.
Use the balloon as a radiator.
Yeah.
But then you also have to consider,
where were you?
There also, if you're using a 36 gauge wire, if you hung a 1 or 2 gram weight at the bottom of it, just a 1 gram weight, it would keep it taut and stretched out.
They were always flying pretty vertical. I don't know that 36 gauge just didn't wrap up.
Yeah, it really doesn't. I guess
I hadn't thought about a radiating balloon. That would be a good one for the next one.
I think the students brought that up, but then it gets a little bit more risky whenever you consider the balloons are filled with hydrogen. You'd hate to get a voltage spike or a spark or something and light one off.
Yeah, details.
Look at the flash.
But we are trying to send off one more balloon. I think we're just gonna have to go with the foils. I think we're gonna try to make one more big one, maybe a little bit smaller, maybe like 10 feet or something a little bit more manageable, just because the logistics of trying to fill the balloon is kind of crazy, and I think we're kind of running out of material. Because I think we kind of Hail Married it because we had to use 24 feet worth of the material to make, or 32 feet worth of the material to make that 16-foot long balloon. So worst comes to worst, we'll just send off like this fourth launch a foil balloon, but these only get to like 30,000 feet, so that's the whole issue with them. But they're really cheap. They're like $2 a balloon, $4 a balloon versus the SBS 13, which is like 160. So if I was like a school or I guess next year's capstone group, if they just want to send one off, I would recommend doing the foil balloons if they know they have good weather, because people online say the foil balloons just do as well as the SBS 13s. Yeah, they don't get to the height requirement, but the SBS 13, like, they're probably, if it's going to hit a storm, they'll probably both hit the storm.
Do your foil balloons say happy birthday on them?
I wish.
The paint would be wasted weight.
Yeah. Minimize it everywhere.
You can attach an NTS message to them, Mark.
Use it for an NTS repeater. That's what we should do. That's cool.
Yeah, I could see, cloud to cloud lightning, taking it down pretty easy.
If you want to get involved, if anybody else wants to get involved, those little trackers are available. Like they're 100, like you said, $115. And I've got one sitting right here that will talk on whisper and 2 meters. So if you want to play with them, they're kind of fun toy to play with. They program up like an Arduino, and you can put your call sign in them and do all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, they also sell a $100 one, but it doesn't have the whisper mode, which I feel like the whisper mode was really cool. So I think it's definitely worth the extra little splurge for the whisper mode.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate that. That's I hope you all had fun.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for all the help this semester. Thanks for having us too. It was fun to talk about our capstone project, not just send a video into a bunch of judges and never hear about it again.
Yeah. The you think you guys are going to continue on with your amateur radio efforts?
I do want to get extra amateur. I think that'd be really nice. I remember I was talking to my job about it. When I was kind of interviewing with them, I told them I was going in for my general, and one of the guys that was interviewing me has this extra amateur, and he his face lit up when I told him that I was going for it. And yeah, so maybe it helped, but
I told you.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I plan on going forth on amateur radio stuff over the summer.
Okay.
Just kind of seeing what I can afford to do and mess around with.
Well, if you're staying around Norman, we'll be happy to help, and OU Club would be happy to help, and we'll get you going as you want to do it. If not, let me know, and I'll find somebody wherever you're going to end.
So tell us about your future endeavors. Vincent, you said you've already got a job, and tell us where you're headed.
So I'm going to be going to Edwards Air Force Base out in California. I was, yeah, it's out in California.
Skunk Works.
Yeah, I'll be working for Air Force Civilian Services. I'm supposed to be working, and they haven't told me perfectly. They just said that they can't really tell me that much, other than that I'm going to be working on hypersonic missiles on bombers or fighter aircraft. That's all I was told.
If they put you on an unmarked airplane, I know where you're going.
And then Eric can tell, and 2 and Amber can tell too.
Sure. My plans for once we graduate in these next coming days will be to start at my full-time job in Boeing. I'll stay in Oklahoma City at the Boeing location. For the past year and a half or so, I've been interning with them and doing a lot of aerodynamic analysis on the bombers. It's more of like a support group more than doing anything new, because a lot of OKC is more about modifying the legacy aircraft. So you got to attach multiple antenna, do a lot of repairs and whatnot. And whenever that comes to you, that's the stuff I'll be working on and aerodynamics wise.
Both good jobs.
Amber?
Yeah, I'm still in the process of applying to places and trying to get something good. So looks like I'm going to be hanging around here until someone picks up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and after my graduation, I will be going for a master program at OU. Yeah, and I'm gonna be hanging around Norman for a while.
Deal.
Very good. Congratulations to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Anyone else with questions or comments for our presenters this morning? All right, seeing none. Again, thank you for presenting to us this morning. Quite an interesting program to all of us, I'm sure. And best of wishes in your future endeavors. Dr. Hayes, thank you this morning. All right, well, we'll move on. I don't see Hank Hamner on our board this morning. Hank, are you here? Okay, well, hearing none. The club currently has approximately $20,860 in the bank account, with not a lot of things being going on right now. It's we're not spending a lot of money, which is a good thing. We do have some expenditures coming up. Last meeting we authorized some money for field day activities and so on. But that's the short version of the financial report, other than if you've not paid dues to the club, you're delinquent. And not necessarily juvenile delinquent, but let's, if you wish to be a member of the club, you need to pay your dues, please. You can do that online or find Hank Hamner, HHQ, and take care of that. As was commented in the pre-meeting, socializing, Peter Laws is not with us today. More important things to take care of, like wedding anniversaries. So standing in for him this morning will be Wayne, telling us about the recent BE testing.
Okay, thank you, Gavin. Yeah, we had a test session on June the 6th. Mark, if you can put that, do you have that slide up there?
I do. There we go. Make everybody
right.
see it.
All right. Yeah, we had a good session. We had several new amateurs that joined us and some that upgraded. We had, I believe, 3 techs, 2 upgraded to general. Actually, one guy went all the way from nothing to general, and that's good. Had another upgrade to general and 2 extras. So congratulations to all of them. I'm going to give them a hand for that.
Any of those guys here on the call today?
I'm sorry?
One of them is on the call today, right? Mark?
Yep, Mark Clayton. Mark Clayton's on the call today. He upgraded to general. Congratulations to him.
James on the call too. I thought I saw him earlier.
If he was, then I appreciate bring that to my attention. I missed that. I apologize for that. Anyway, so had a good session. We had a total of 8 testers. 7 out of the 8 walked away with licenses. So I'd say that's pretty good odds. And it's not because of what we do, it's because of what you do. You study for the test, you take the test, you're the one that's passing it. We just give you the opportunity to do it. We will have the next opportunity on June the 3rd. It will be at the Firehouse number 7 at 1830. And so I wanted to make a little comment on the FCC fee, the $35 fee. That now I want to clear this up. It's Congress and not the FCC who is imposing this fee. Congress told FCC you need to charge. Now we've went many years without having to pay a fee. There used to be a fee way back in the day, and now, long story short, they want some more money. So it was supposed to have went into effect in April. It did not. They still haven't announced a date. Once they announce a date, there'll be a 30-day window when the fee takes place. The $35 fee will be for new license, renewing license, pretty much everything except an administrative update like changing your address and such as that. And we all know that when you move, you're supposed to change your address. And the FCC website says in a timely manner. They don't exactly say when. But anyway, so if you're looking at making changes, getting a vanity call and all that, I'd say do it pretty quick. And let us know if there's, once we have a date, we've kicked around the idea of having a special session so that we can, we call it the free session. So it'll be the last time that that you'll get something for free. And I just wanted to say that it's not SCARS that's going to be collecting the money. We won't have anything to do that. We will still give the test for free. And then when you go to apply for your license from the FCC, they're going to want some money. So go online to the SCARS website, register when you want to take the next test. Mark Clayton. I'm not saying any names, but and you get it for free. So anyway, I think I've said about enough on that. So I'll pass it on back to Galen. Thank you.
Anybody have questions concerning that? Okay, if not, we'll move on. Wayne, as long as your mug's up on the screen here, go ahead and tell us about the Siren Net too.
All right, Siren Net. Yes, we have a weekly Siren Net for Siren. Weekly Siren Net at Saturday at noon time. We say noon because we usually start about 12:01 to give the sirens time to wind down for the cities of Moore, Norman, Noble, and Newcastle. And what that pertains is to, for those that don't know, you go out, you pick a siren, you can go to w5nor.org/siren, pick a siren that's not already taken, and report back on it. It's on the 440 repeater, which is 443-700. That's a pretty important piece of information I should add in there. And usually we send out an email, and I have already sent out the email today. Usually try to send it out by 10:30, so it gives some people, we have some people that drive from distances to Norman to help us out with that. We really appreciate all the help we can get. So did I forget anything? I don't know. But anyway, we will be testing today, and I will be your net control station today. And if you have any questions, I did want to say that if you are not getting the email that we send out ahead of time, then, and this email usually pertains to whether or not the cities are going to test for the day, then shoot off an email to w5nor@w5nor.org. They will get the message back to myself and the other 2 NCOs, and we'll add you to the email list. So I guess that's about all for that. So I'll give it back to you, Galen.
The part that you didn't say is something I say as an emergency manager that is the recipient of these reports. I have 42 sirens in my city. Norman's got 60 some. There's no way that our staffs of one can go out and be aware of everything that goes on with all of our sirens. So the assistance we get is greatly appreciated. We both have electronic means of that have some diagnostics on board, and they report in every day and so on. So sometimes we have a pretty good idea of which sirens are working and which sirens aren't in terms of whether they're communicating with us. But there's nothing that beats having eyes on the sirens. In fact, we had, it wasn't through our net, but we had a siren enthusiast, if you will, that was videoing one of my sirens one day here, I don't know, several months ago, and watched one rotation where there was smoke coming out of the horn. There was nothing wrong electronically with the siren, so it was reporting to me that it was fine. It sounded fine until it smoked. And then even after that, it was still sounding. It just sounded a little funny if you didn't know what you were listening for. But his having eyes on that siren alerted us to the fact that it had a problem, and we were able to fix that problem within a day and have the siren back up, protecting the citizens of south side of Moore. So we certainly appreciate the efforts of everybody that makes an effort to go out and take time out of their Saturdays to let us know what's going on with our siren systems.
Galen?
Yes.
If I may, for Mr. Grizzle. As the guys in Norman know, we had a significant hail event. And last week, we still didn't have everybody be able to lay eyes on their particular siren. And one of the things we were looking for is any damage to siren horns and also damage to the photo cell or the solar cell panels. So we're asking folks if they can please lay eyes on them.
Did we ever find any of the solar cells that had problems? I
So far, no.
I was listening last week, and everybody was just amazed that there weren't more issues with them.
Yeah, so far, no, but it's amazing. You're right. I would put stock in that company.
Very good. Anybody else have questions concerning the siren net? All right, moving on. Bill Baker, tell us about 10 meters.
Well, excuse me. We have our 10-meter net on Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Central Time, 28.445 upper sideband. This past Wednesday, we ended up with a check-in from Ohio, Arizona, and Hawaii. Thank goodness for KG5 SSU having the best ears in the state. He can hear stuff that the rest of us can't. So I'm glad to have him in the crowd. Anyway, come and join us if you can.
Very good, thank you. Denny, how about the Gossip Net?
Haven't seen Denny.
Denny's still with us? He was on earlier. Well, I don't see him either. Generally about 8:30 on Tuesday evenings on the 2-meter repeater is the Gossip Net, where things go out of the technical into the social, and kind of a little bit of a rag chew on that. So hang around on that one. And Randy, are you our new guy on the Randy or Phil, either one? Tell us about Aries.
I'll let Phil go first, and then I'll follow it.
Okay, good morning. Our Aries net is a preparedness and training drill for emergency procedures. The Aries net happens on Tuesday evening, 8 o'clock local time. It happens on the 2-meter SCARS repeater. We normally have from 30 to 40 check-ins
on that net. It's a good way to shake down your equipment and make sure that your equipment is working right in the event that it's needed on a real net. This past Tuesday night, all of the net control operators have been doing a fantastic job. This last Tuesday night, Randy, W6KPR, ran the net, and he did it on the UHF repeater. So that gave everyone an opportunity to check out their UHF operation and make sure their equipment works on that frequency. As you know, the UHF frequency is a standby alternative to the VHF stars repeaters. So it's a good idea to make sure your equipment works there. We will be doing that some more on future Tuesday nights. We may try having a net on simplex, or we may try having a net on a different repeater. We'll talk that over with the various net controllers, and we'll announce that plenty in advance to give you time to prepare for that net. Hope you can come join us. Thanks. That's it.
Randy?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Phil. Appreciate that. New information. I am the new EC for Cleveland County, and I'm filing reports under Mark.
Does EC stand for egg chef?
Emergency control, and
emergency coordinator.
And thankfully, Mark talked to me about filling the requirement, because we're lacking those in the state of Oklahoma. I think, Mark, what did we end up having? 6 active ECs?
Yeah, this month reporting, we've had 6 out of 77 counties report. So we're, I'm so happy to have Cleveland County be one of the 6. That's wonderful to see that.
And our group is the 3rd largest in the state, behind Tulsa and Oklahoma City. We have about 76 active ARRL members that are listed in the Amateur Emergency Service Program in Oklahoma. Would really like to get those numbers up if we can. I know a lot of gentlemen think, well, it's just sending more money to an organization, but this organization does help nationally and worldwide with so many different types of emergencies. And I was fortunate enough to find this position, and Mark's handed it over to me. I want to put out a thank you and a congratulations to Lee, who is now my assistant. Of course, when I work at night at the casinos, I'm not able to do some of the role. Lee has accepted it and will be doing a lot of the things. There is one thing I'd like to point out. We put over 600 hours just last month between all of our nets. That's including, of course, the Aries Tuesday night meeting net. It's also the DMR net that we run through Lee and Mark. It's the Saturday siren nets. Those are all training hours that we put in. And, you know, when you start looking at those man hours that we put into it, it shows that our club is, you know, willing to go outside and do the just the legwork and keep these things up. So I do appreciate it, everyone that does participate in those. Wayne, I did send you a text replying to that. If you can get me the call sign count for the siren net, then I can keep track of that for my monthly report.
Yes,
so,
I did get that.
yeah, look forward to us doing some new, and, you know, Galen has in the past run really good training nets. asking people how close they are to certain ECOs that they might be going to, or EOC, sorry, and what they might be able to bring. I did that on this last net that we did using the UHF. I was very impressed with the number that we had, 31 check-ins. Everyone was clear, legible. Had one or two that might have been questionable, but I think it was just kind of a short notice thing that they were not quite prepared for it. So we'll get those other people involved and get those numbers up as high as we normally are. So I appreciate it and look forward to working with the group, and hopefully we can improve in the coming months. Thank you, Gail.
Just want to add one
ahead.
thing, that Aries it's not a requirement to be an ARRL member to be in Aries, and you can sign up at ariesok.org, ARESOK.org. If you just want to do it. Think of it as not a membership, but as more of a registration, that, you know, that when stuff happens, we have lists of people to come visit with. So appreciate all your efforts.
Oh, and one thing, Mark mentioned something about the website and the updates that you added to.
Thank you, sir. We, in addition to all this madness, the ariesok.org website went down on March 17th. I think it had too much to drink, and it disappeared. So we stood up a brand new WordPress site for aries.ok.org. It's got a ton of training information on it. It has a place to register yourself. The data is, as we found, has been squishy. So if you have been listed on ariesok.org, please try again. Go log in, check your information, make sure your contact information is correct. You will be able to see all of the rest of the members of Cleveland County. And if you need phone numbers or contact information, you can always get it for emergency purposes. And that's the list that is used to make sure that we have people involved. Lots of good training and description about it. And if you're wanting to get more involved in the county area, see our great EC, and let Randy take care of you. If you're in a different county, same thing applies. And if you want to see what other counties are doing, there's in the About tab, there's something called Counties, and it lists all 77 counties and who's the emergency coordinators and some information about each one. And I think we're 30 or so out of the 77. So if you've got friends in counties that have blanks, let me know and we'll sign them up. That'd be great.
And remember, just because you're an amateur radio operator and you think, wow, you know, I can go help in disasters. That's true, but don't wait until the disaster happens to think about it, because the training is extremely important. This isn't, disaster time is not the time for rag chewing. It's not the time to remember that, oh wait, I don't have the direct version of the repeater in my handheld. Oh wait, I don't have my handheld, with a good antenna, that sort of thing. And for sure, don't just show up at an EOC unless you're called, because if you show up at my EOC and you're not called, I will probably not open the door for you. It's not that we don't want help. It's just that, you've got to make those relationships and partnerships ahead of time. Because if somebody shows up at my door and goes, well, I'm a ham operator, I don't know that, unless I just happen to know you. And the EOC may not be where I need a person anyway. So there is a procedure. There is some things to do. Mark's got the independent study courses up right now, as well as the ARRL classes. So avail yourselves of those. All right. Any other questions about the AriesNet? If not, Mark or Randy or Lee, tell us about the Aries DMRNet.
I'll take the Aries DMRNet and chime in a little bit about also, since he's got the training up, we're definitely asking people to start getting the training done. The courses are free from FEMA. The 100, 200, and 700 courses are the absolute minimum. Please, it's going to help a lot in understanding the bigger picture. It's not just checking in. There's a lot more to it, guys.
It's how you fit into the deal.
Pardon me?
It's how you fit in.
Right, exactly.
That's what
Exactly. What piece of the puzzle you are. And believe me, there's a lot of moving pieces to this puzzle. So please take the courses. Like I said, they're free. All you have to do is sign up and get it. When you finish it, print out your certificate and let us get a copy of it on file. That helps quite a bit. The Aries DMR net is a statewide net on Talk Group 3140 on Monday nights at 8:15 p.m. And we always try to do a little bit of a training session in each one. 2 weeks ago, I instituted getting all the members to start getting the apps on their phone or whatever way they wanted to do it, but for everybody to start getting their latitude and longitude of exactly where they are and start understanding about that. Galen well knows when Moore got hit, there wasn't street signs any longer. There wasn't streets. So saying that, a person was maybe in a shelter under their house or what was their house at such and such a street address didn't help. So having the latitude and longitude on file, and we're doing that on the Aries net or on the statewide ARESOK website. So take a look at that as well. Anyway, 8:15 Monday evening, Talk Group 3140. Come join us. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Any other nets we need to talk about?
6 meter.
I was trying to remember whether the 6 meter is still going or not. Unfortunately, I don't have an antenna right now. So, Wayne, is it still going?
It is still going. I have not participated myself, but it is still going. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure about the frequency. If somebody else has that information,
Monday nights 50.200 upper sideband.
Okay.
GMKG5 BIM is still the net control for that.
Very good. All right. Let's move right on down the list here. Mark or Ed, tell us about the technical side of the house.
Nothing new to report. Everything's still up and running, and Peter and I are still working on the transfer of information. So that's moving on as usual.
Very good. All right, so you've heard a lot of us talking. Let's have you talk. Who's got new stuff? Who's got new equipment? Who's done some cool operating stuff this month? Anybody? All right, we'll move right on. As I mentioned at the start of the meeting, we had hoped maybe to try and have this meeting of our club back in person again at the firehouse in Norman. The executive committee met earlier in the week, and given that we still have a mask mandate in the city of Norman for events over a certain amount of people, we felt that it would probably be best to hold off at least one more month. We believe that mask mandate will probably end around the 1st of July or 1st of June, assuming there's no upticks and that sort of thing. So we will announce that via the weekly newsletter the week of the meeting. So please look there, and hopefully we'll be able to do that and get to see each other again. Once that happens, that will probably open the door to going back, resuming in-person Elmer nights and doing some of the other in-person club activities. it'll be a whole lot of fun to get back together instead of sitting here looking at a camera. Mark Klein, tell us quickly about Field Day.
Quickly about Field Day. Once a year, all of us wonderful amateur radio operators and future amateur radio operators get together in a field and we have a day. This year, our field is going to be Firehouse number 7 and 2207 Goddard Avenue up by the airport in Norman. Our goal is to have 3 transmitters up and running, a phone, a digital, and a CW transmitter. We will be all running simultaneously. Typically, this starts with setup at 9 a.m. on Saturday. It will be the 4th full weekend in June 22nd. I think it's 22nd, 23rd. Let me pull that up. And we start setting up at about 9 in the morning. We start operating and transmitting at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we go for 24 hours. It runs until Sunday at 1 o'clock. There is food, festivities, and fun. The food is going to be hopefully just wonderful like it has been over the years, except for last year where we had to stunt it a little bit. Current known events are going to be a fox hunt where we're going to plant a transmitter where you can try to find it with your handy talkie, and an antenna build operation where you can build a roll-up J-pole. We got another $10 kit for that. That'll be a roll-up J-pole that you can put together. So the tape measures we can build for about $10, and the other ones can go for about $10. So if you're interested in those, that's another good fun activity that'll be there. We usually do dinner at about 6 o'clock in the evening. I assume we're going to be able to run the same as we've done in the past with a potluck kind of thing, bring all the food, and we usually eat outside. So that should be a good event this year to keep going with the activities. If you're interested, take a look at w5nor.org/FD for Field Day and get all the news that's there to be newsed. If you're wanting to be involved, send messages to the folks there.
Mark,
Mark,
are you?
Go ahead,
Mark,
Phil.
are you the coordinator?
Wayne and I are sharing this. It depends where the argument is on where the line is drawn. But yeah, what do you need?
I need to talk to you later about the food.
Okay. All righty. We'll extend that discussion later. Do you have something else, Galen?
Mark, the command post will be available.
Okay.
And I just wanted to reiterate that will be on the 26th and 27th of June.
June 26th, June 27th.
Thank you very much.
For those of you who've not participated in this before, yes, it run once we start operating at 1 p.m. on Saturday, we run all night and clear up till 1 p.m. on Sunday. So yes, it is an overnight operation. Yes, it takes lots of people. It's a lot of fun. And if you're a technician class, that's a good chance to get your feet wet with some HF with the general class there with you or higher. It's a good chance to learn about things maybe that you aren't, maybe you're right now doing voice and might be interested in digital and want to do CWs. So it's a good chance to experience other things within the hobby.
And if you have friends that are interested, it's a great place to bring them to show them. We will have activities going on for all bands, all modes. If you're chicken on HF, this is your time to get there. If you're wanting to try something different, this is the time to be there. The next month's program will be Field Day operations. And by operations, we're talking about how to key the microphone and how to do that. We've talked about all of the details. We've never really talked about, once you sit in front of the microphone, how do you actually key the microphone, what exchanges go through, and some skills and efforts to make you be able to rip off that button right there. Galen's pushing that button. Some skills and efforts for you to not only hear, so that you understand what you're hearing on the radio, and so that you can effectively communicate. I ran, I don't know what, 4 or 5 hours overnight, and ran 300 stations, and I never got out of the chair. But learning those skills to keep it going and keep it moving, and sit on a channel is something we're going to talk about at the June meeting. So if you're interested in learning how to do some of that stuff, a lot of it's called contesting. Remember, field day is not a contest, but we keep score and there's points. So I don't know how they always fight that one out, but it's a lot to learn, and we'll go through that on next in the June meeting.
One of the overarching goals of field day is to demonstrate and practice that we can actually go out into the field, away from our home stations, away from our KW linear amps and our 1,000-foot towers and our $1 million radios, and actually set up and assist people from out somewhere else. Again, putting the emergency management hat on, that is something that assists emergency managers, and this is a chance to demonstrate that, A, we can do it, remember how to do it, coordinate on it. I will tell you this, a week ago was one of the anniversaries of a very large tornado that went through Andover, Kansas back in 1991. And it was the very first time that I had ever been at a command post. I had been an emergency manager maybe 3 weeks, and went to Andover with a part of a different group, non-emergency management related, but I was up there working at their command post area. And one of the lessons that I learned, even though I wasn't playing with radios, was that they had all of these radios there and nobody could talk because they were all interfering with each other. We've had that happen on field day, where we've put up this antenna, that antenna, another wire antenna, and we were causing, one band was causing interference on another. So it's a good chance for us to learn. It's a good chance for us to practice. It's a good chance for us to figure out what resources we have available to help other people. Any questions about field day? Do we have anything else for the good of the order?
One thing here.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
One thing, the MACnet. The MACnet's probably going to be coming to a close because McDonald's will be opening back up. We don't know exactly when, but we do know that the mayor has said that restaurants and bars and gyms can go back to 100% occupancy. So it's just a matter of days, I guess. So anyway, there was a little impromptu talk about it, I guess, day before yesterday on the MACnet, and the consensus was people want to keep it going. But we're probably going to change it from the MACnet to something like the Morning Chew. So if you've got a name that you like better, sing out. But otherwise, we're still going to probably be keeping it around at 9 o'clock in the mornings.
Very good. Anything else for the good of the order today? All right, with that, everyone have a great week. Everybody have a great month. We'll see you back next month, and hopefully we'll see you in person. Again, we'll be watching that and let everybody know. Everybody have a good day. See you on the Siren Net here shortly.
Thanks all.
Peace.
If you want to stay in chat, I'll leave this channel open. Go ahead and talk away.
I want to leave. Bye.
Good. Then we can talk about Lee when he leaves. Oh, he left. Oh, darn.
Don't stay here. Tune up and get on the air.
That'll work too.
Hey, Mark, you're going to be running digital, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
All right. Are you bringing your rig, or do I need to bring mine?
I'm bringing mine.
All right.
I'm doing all the practicing of all the little ins and outs and details, and making sure this program works and that program works and the monitors all work good with it and the whole 9 yards. So all I gotta do is set it up and run.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, right.
Right. Including the software to for the logging program, so it works with the WSJT.
Yeah, and I don't. Randy's probably got a better handle on that than I do. How that gets into the other one. So I'll send you that link, that info. But Randy might be able to help
It
you
worked
get.
fine. It was hard for me to keep track of what the other ones were doing. It wasn't showing up on my system what they were, where their counts were.
Oh, you mean others? Yeah, we didn't have them linked last year.
Yeah, and we need to make sure that we have the link going this time.
Yeah.
Of
But
course,
I don't know how.
That gave me an excuse to leave the trailer and go over to the firehouse.
Yeah,
see who
that's
was
okay.
there.
Well, last year was kind of kind of wonky. There was 3 of us there. That was the weird thing. It's like there's nobody near me. But I don't know how you have to connect your. Does N3FJP talk to your radio directly, or does it go through grid tracker?
No, it's direct.
It's direct.
Okay.
I did read that.
Do I need to get some software installed on the computers in the command post?
Yes.
Just
as backup.
Well,
don't you think?
I don't know. Are you willing to put on N3 FJP and WSJTX?
I don't know why not.
And grid tracker. I don't know what your policies are. I mean, is
it something we would want to use in the real world?
Yeah, because that's how you would
go.
connect.
There's your
there you
answer.
go. I like people that ask the right questions. Yeah,
Yes.
That's not a bad idea. Because like you said, backups or mains and
Well,
I will send you the club license information for N3FJP, and then probably I guess WSJTX is the only thing else. Is that what almost?
I think that one, because that's the one we're using primarily for the logging, and it would be nice to have it on the big screen.
Yeah.
People walk in, bang, there's the information we've done so far today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mirror that on the external workstation too.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's not like I don't have the software already, but it's N3 what?
N3FJP, Fox Juliet Papa. But I'll have to send you that one because it's a field day edition, and then there's a code that you have to go with it. But
and what's the other?
WSJT -X.
That's free.
That's free.
And grid tracker.
Yeah, grid tracker would be cool to put on the outside one, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it would.
And you'll need to get a real-time clock as well.
Oh yeah, good point.
I use the network time synchronization.
Works good.
Yeah, network time.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, you need to have that one. That
it
works
gives you-
good.
Because it gives you 4 backup, or 1 primary and 3 backups. In case one goes down, you can it will still search for another one, and it gives you real time.
I use net time.
Yeah,
No.
it's called network time.
Oh, I've got net time here. That's not it.
Nope.
That
It's network time.
Yeah, network time.
There it is, network.
And it's free.
I use Mindberg, but
Yeah, network time is the one that Bill Baker actually told me about.
is that the one that you're seeing on the screen? Network time system 2.4.2.
Yes.
Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to add that to the page. That's I use Mindberg for server stuff. I've got servers gone wacky at the office, and I've actually used the Mindberg stuff there. Neat. Yeah, good. I'm glad you thought of that, because we got out there.
I think it's called net. Yeah, it's net time 3.14 is the version I have.
Net
Let me look, see what I've got.
It's under WW.
I've got network time
Time sync tool.
synchronization.
Time sync tool. Is that it?
No, I've got it's called, mine's network time synchronization.
Right. But if you pull up if you click on the About tab on that, Mark, it'll come up with a website of www.timesynctool.com.
That's it. Version 3.14.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, net time setup is what this page is what it says. Mark Griffiths.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yep. So it's good just to have it on your computer. I mean,
Yeah,
have it
no, I
running in the
agree.
background.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, it keeps your computer it links with your computer, so it keeps especially during storms and everything else, because we all know what happens to electronics when the cycle changes.
Yep. And then time.is is a web page that's a great place to go. And for instance, mine, because of the Meinberg, says it's exact. I'm 0.01.
If you're a Noble.
Yeah, well, I technically kind of am, but I don't know. I'm right on the line. But the line gets weird, but it shows tenth of a hundredth of a second off. And like I said, I actually put them on servers at the office because Microsoft's time was going wonky. But no, I think Digital Mark's got it all up and running. His goal is to get it all doing its thing. You've got a radio. We can use that T2FD since Galen's going to bring the truck. The antenna comes with the truck, and
that'll work.
Randy had really good luck with that over the past couple of years. Just got to figure out where we'll sit everything, but cool. Glad to have it.
Weren't we using the the n3fjp.com logging system?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it's .com, but it's in N3FJP.
Yes. And of course, part of that is free, but if you want it set up for field day, you have to.
It's $8.
The club has a license.
Okay. Okay.
That's what I got to send is that license stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
Galen, that's the one I think would be the best, because that's what links all. We can have the different stations linked using that software.
Hey,
I've got personal copy. I just don't have it on the truck. So, but I'll wait and let
Okay.
Mark
But
see it.
isn't the field day one different? So I can never figure out.
Yeah, field day. Yeah, there's a setup that they actually, and every year they update that so that it includes the new rules.
And isn't that different from the regular software, or is it just the
Yes.
license different? So it's different software.
Well, it cuts out if it just opens the parameters for the rules for that contest.
But like, for instance, with Galen's copy that he has personally registered, does that do the field day?
It should.
Remember.
I mean, what it ends up giving you is password codes to unlock certain things to get you those other for field day and everything else, as opposed to just the generic logging program that they have out. If you pay for it, then you get that. And it allows for, like I said, they update it every year for the new rules.
Oh, I see what it is. You pay $30 for the whole thing.
And then, yeah, it gives you,
and then you can add on stuff.
Right. And then you just keep like for field day or anything that Oklahoma is running or something like that, it gives you, they send you an email and give you a different code for each one of those to be able to open it up and use the full extent of the program.
Or you can do $50 and gives you everything. By God, they molly everybody. Okay.
Yeah, but it's a one-time deal. It's
Yeah.
not a yearly purchase. You just do it once, and then they also allow you all the updates.
I see.
By the way, I've got to run, but Randy, I wanted to apologize for not being on the net Tuesday night. I knew you were going to do something, but I've been a little under the weather this week, and Tuesday night was just not going to happen.
Well, that, and you were busy a few nights before that too, so.
Well, and
that's understandable.
I was busy a night after that too with generator problems. So it's not one thing, it's something else. So I got to run, guys. We'll see y'all.
Hey,
see you later, Galen.
Appreciate
Take
you,
care.
Galen. Good job.
Well, I got to bounce out of here too, Mark. I've got to start getting ready to go to work.
Good idea. Good idea. Thanks for your help.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good presentation. Well done. Well done.
I will see you guys on Zoom Tuesday night.
Alrighty. See what else floating around here.
Have a good one.
There's still some folks hanging around. There's Bill Lockett. How's Bill Lockett doing? He's not talking to us.
No, he's blocked, but I got to go, guys. So
see you, Mark.
See you Tuesday.
See you, General.
Yeah.
There, I got unmuted.
Now we're listening to you. Better have something to say.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. I'm been doing pretty good.
Good. Good.
What I was trying to network time, is that an app or what?
Yeah, it's a program that runs, and in the background it adjusts your clock to match the correct time. So for instance, mine that I show on the screen here says my time is exact. So that puts you on for the digital modes. You need to be right on time for those. The Windows one doesn't do it as frequently. It'll keep you close, but it's not good enough. And I use one called Meinberg, MEINBERG, and they're using one called NetTime.
Okay, but they're not. Are they apps or
they are programs? I don't know what we call them.
Programs,
Apps or anymore.
okay.
Yeah, I mean they're running on a PC. I'll put that link here in the chat.
Okay.
Oof, that's a scary link. But oh, I just shot it to Wayne. That's not right. Everybody, there we go. But that keeps, if you're doing digital work, that keeps you on time and on track. And if you're not in the right time, you miss the timing cycles because they're just back and forth. And
Right. A lot of the digital modes demand that, right?
Yes. I don't know that they demand the zero problem, but within a second or two is what I've been told. I've not pushed it to see how far you can go, but I've always, whenever I've done the whisper stuff with my little like my push button, the one that you hang out, it's whisper light, has no clock on it, but you push the button at the exact right second, and they say to get that within 2 seconds. And it will drift, if it runs for more than a week, it drifts out, and unless somebody else has drifted out with you, you don't get any responses.
Oh, me. Okay.
Skippy. How's Bob doing? Here's Uncle Bob floating in. Yeah, you're talking to the muted mic.
Myself, I can
There you
always
go.
be heard. I'm doing okay. Just still working on my computer programs for tracking.
We were talking about you last night. Are you still doing Fortran? Is that what you're doing in Fortran?
Yes, I do a lot of scripting too for real time running stuff in real time using the bash, or it's basically in Ubuntu and Linux.
Yeah.
But the actual programs are in Fortran. I can take a C program and maybe modify it a little bit, but to write a C program from scratch is a little bit beyond me.
Someone was talking yesterday on the OU Zoom and the student Zoom, and they're like, "What's Fortran?" I went, "Oh no,
never heard of it." Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they hadn't even heard about it. And
yeah, you probably heard this too. Now we were talking last Tuesday night about the balloon launches, weather service balloon launches, the new equipment being put in, and I learned that they're switching over from helium to hydrogen, and that's why they probably have. I'm guessing they have a limited supply of helium left, so they're just really picking and choosing when to launch those balloons rather than doing them, routinely.
I knew they had it shut down. I couldn't figure out A, why you would do it in the middle of storm season. And
I know.
And B, why they were doing it all. Surely if they were just doing a coat of paint, it's like, come on. But I hadn't heard they were switching over to hydrogen. That makes a difference.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I don't know, they probably had a fixed schedule, to do that. They didn't have any control of it, but
you people in the government know how that works.
I know in Canada they switched over to hydrogen a long time ago, and they probably did here too in various places. Just takes a while to kind of get through everything. So I guess there's a hydrogen generator that is on site.
Oh, so they're actually generating their own. Oh.
I think that's where it works. I know that's what they did in Canada when I was up at Goose Bay. They had a generator there. That way they didn't have to worry about shipping tanks in.
That makes sense, because we actually looked. Dr. Hayes and I were teasing about it earlier, and I said, well, we could just make our own. And the hydrogen generators were not. I mean, they were prohibitive for this kind of short-term project, but they weren't out of whack. I'm guessing the people are starting to get ready for cars, maybe car production of that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. And I don't know for sure that they have a generator. I'm just assuming they do.
Yeah, this let's see, I put it up. This is the one I remember we looked at before. 160 milliliters per minute was $11,000. And if you think, and that's just one out of the box. If you think about it, that's in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing for a purchase price.
That's nothing for the government.
Yeah, it's nothing for the government. And how would that save you over the years on helium costs?
Right.
Probably a bunch, because helium's got a fixed. We're the only source of it. We're us in Russia. And
they had that constant expendables for helium, and it adds up.
160 milliliters a minute. So what does that give us a day? What, 0.16 times 60 times 24. 230 liters a day. That should be plenty for a balloon launch.
You would think so.
I don't remember what Vince was saying, and didn't he say 180 liters in that big balloon that they were doing? So that's probably a fourth of that. You could probably do 3 or 4 easily, and that's only 10 grand. That's the first one that popped up.
The other probably bigger ones. In Alaska, they've switched over to an automated Ravenson launch system at their sites. I don't know how that's working out, but I know up in Barrow, the folks, last time I was up there, they were down to 2 employees in their office, and they, I think, had a year left before they were going to be displaced. It's kind of sad that, in a way, that
they'd automate everything.
Yeah, they're so totally automated that there's no need for humans anymore.
Yeah. Were you on earlier when I asked about that drone that Dr. Hayes had for high altitude, that would it be, forget about the laws, could you run a drone up with a Raywinson pack?
Oh yeah.
And he was talking that they have stuff that goes to 60,000 feet. What's the top that you're looking for when you look at one of those?
You mean the top altitude?
Altitude, yeah.
For weather balloon or
Yeah,
for...
yeah, weather balloons, yeah.
Well, like you mentioned, it's typically you want to get past the tropopause into the stratosphere a little bit, so they can go up. They can burst at 50, 60,000 feet. They don't always do that, but the biggest problem is, our lab's done a lot of. They had a whole program of ballooning with conventional weather balloons, launching them in thunderstorm updrafts.
Yeah.
And for lightning studies, so they had all kinds of additional equipment on there for measuring the electric fields. They still do that. And then there's another guy who has a camera system that flies on a weather balloon, and they retrieve it somehow, that actually takes these pictures of the hydrodynamic, the particle sizes of all the
rain,
rain and snow and ice crystals and that sort of thing. And but that doesn't get up nearly as high because of the weight. But there are Boulder. Part of NOAA does these they're called upper atmospheric observations, and they use balloons kind of similar to what he was showing or thinking, I think, with the long one that they're putting together.
Yeah. And
they have, for ozone measurements and other things. And a guy actually sent me, I have a instrument package sitting in my office that they weren't using anymore, that had a sensor on there for that, where they did launch it at these very high altitudes. Huh. So it just depends on the application, but the conventional, for just weather observations, yeah, they'll get up to 50, 60,000 feet typically, unless they get caught in an up, they got icing load on it through super cold water. That's the big problem.
When's the data? When are you done with the data? 50, 60,000?
That goes until a burst. It's set up to just.
But is it still usable that high?
Yeah. They have part of weather forecasting involves the stratosphere, so mapping out the pressure patterns and temperature patterns in the stratosphere is used in the models. So they want to go up to at least the lower stratosphere. So it's going to be, pressure wise down to, I don't know, 50 millibars. Certainly less than 100 millibars helps. But if they don't get up that high, they don't get up that high.
Yeah.
But they do take their archive data, just like, the troposphere up in the lower stratosphere, and that's used for like monitoring the polar vortex, and there's this interaction between the polar vortex or what goes on in the lower stratosphere and goes on below it. So it's very important to measure it. The icing is the biggest problem on those balloons because of the load, obviously, the weight of the rhyming on it. I think if they get up to the really high levels where you're in cirrus clouds, which are almost totally ice crystals, I don't see that being an issue, even for so much of a small balloon, because it's not going to capture it. The equipment's not going to capture those particles; they'll just flow around it.
Yeah.
So it really, but those are 40,000 feet and higher typically don't have super cold water is really the problem in aviation. A big problem, it's water droplets where the air temperature is below freezing, because it will rhyme aircraft, and balloons, and it's a big aviation hazard. But once you get up high enough where it's don't have super cold water, then that's not a problem. It just flows around the assuming the body of the aircraft or the balloon is at the ambient temperature of minus 50 or 60 or whatever it is.
Yeah. I went to Ponca City up in that area a couple years ago, and there was a huge front that was going through there, and I was going west to east, and it was super cold where I was, and it was raining to the east.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we went right into that. Didn't have any clue what was going on, but just driving down the highway, and I got dumped on with this super cold car and a pile of rain. It was still moisture, and it put about a half an inch of ice on the car.
Wow.
And there was so much ice on the car, we couldn't get out. You
couldn't open the doors.
Yeah, couldn't open the doors.
We're trapped.
We're trapped in the car. Had to. We finally drove where we were going, and it was kind of a little warmer there, and finally got it weak on one side, and we got out of one side of the car, and then Roger Bain was with me, Bill. Roger got out, and he could open my side and get the door open. But that was the scariest thing in the world. It was just like being hit with a big old bag of potatoes.
Hello? Can you guys hear me? Hey, don't kick me out.
Okay.
Oh, well.
Okay. Well,
yeah, and the faster you're moving in a car or aircraft, the greater the rate of accretion, of rhyming is. Or if you're just sitting still and there's no wind, it's not going to build up quite as quickly. Yeah, and I think a lot of people, unless you're in aviation, don't realize that super cold water exists pretty much all year round in clouds that are, if the air temperature is below freezing, a good bit of the clouds below a certain level. Of course, summertime is not as much of an issue because it's higher, but there was a terrible plane crash. One of the terrible plane crashes involved a regional jet several years ago. I guess maybe 20 years ago now. And there was an employee from OU was on it working for the weather. Well, it wasn't the weather center back then, and it was just in a flight hold pattern around O'Hare. I think he's coming back from Indiana, and he had to connect at O'Hare. And it's wintertime, and they were in this hold pattern. I don't know, maybe at 4,000, 5,000, some altitude like that, and the plane just developed too much of an ice load on it and went down. And since that time, there've been, they've tried to address that issue. I don't think that's happened since, but. And of course, aircraft do have heaters on them and things to help.
Yeah, wing heaters, but
yeah,
they don't carry. They can't do everything. Wasn't there a one of our football folks on that football news folks on that same flight?
There was another event fairly recently, I thought.
No, this was 4 or 5 years ago. 10 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it could have been the same one. I mean, I think the one I'm thinking about was probably 20 years ago.
Oh, okay. No, I was thinking.
Yeah, there was wasn't there a private, really small plane? Well, maybe it was a what they call executive jet or something that went down a couple of years ago. And I know it had they were going to a bowl game or something like that. And there was I think a news, it was someone from the football, from a football team. I didn't think it was OU though.
Okay.